Welcome to the Top 200 podcast with your host, Herschel Foran.
What's up, everybody? It's Herschel Foran from High School Top 200, and this is the Monday Morning Meeting Podcast. Welcome back. Welcome to everybody that's come back to listen to this First 15 update, First 15 from all around the country. And also for those that are new, I am Herschel Foran. I run High School Top 200. Everything that you see on this channel and on my website is all done by me. And I take an interest in this because nobody else is, and everybody wants to know about it, but no one has the space and time to do it. So I love it so much that I do it myself. This is the Monday morning meeting. Actually, first off, if you want to find me, and I'm on all the other platforms like Facebook on HS High School Top 200, at the real HS Top 200 on Instagram, and HS Top 200 on TikTok. Also, if you want to go and see the rankings for player rankings and team rankings, go on to hstop200.com and the $5 subscription a month, and I'll give you all the information there on First Team Rugby here in New Zealand and what's going on. And subscribe to the page, subscribe to the YouTube page, subscribe to and like and follow and pass it on to all your friends, and just get some more information out there about all the guys that are playing rugby around the country and everything that they put into it, because they put a lot of hard work into it. I'm just here to show everybody what everybody does and the talents that we have here in this country. Obviously, I do this because I love it. I love doing following these boys around and showing everybody around the country what kind of talent we have here in New Zealand, and so that these guys can all get some kind of exposure and some kind of notoriety and some fame and some praise and all that kind of stuff because of the hard work that they put into it. And like, we've come down to the last part of the season, and it really is a special time right now for all these guys who are year 13s, for all these guys that are coming down to their last games of First 15 rugby, their last time that they get to play with, their mates that they've grown up with, all the things that they've built to, all the, the goals that they've made and created for themselves and their teams. And it all comes up to these sort of moments. And so I feel like this is one of those times that if you're a young fella right now, try and really remember what you feel like right now, what you've been through this whole year, what you've been through since you've been in First 15 rugby, and just remember these moments, because these are the moments that are going to be really special to you, throughout your lifetime, and the ones that you want to reflect on. I kind of wish sometimes that I knew when the special moments, some of these special moments were. This is one of them. So really take a lot of pride in what you guys have done and have been able to accomplish this far in your rugby careers, and what you've been able to do at school and as a rugby team. Because I know like a lot of you have obviously grown up with the guys that are in your team and the guys that you've been playing with, and a lot of this stuff means a lot more to you than any other rugby that you'll kind of play in your lifetime. So really remember this stuff. So let's get down to some of these games, because I know that not only is this down to the last most important games, but also that this is going to be the last game that some of you guys are going to play with your team. I know that everyone's going to be playing 7 soon, but not kind of the same thing when it comes to 15s. So I went down to St. John's because I like to go to the CNI final down in Taupo. This is something I think the Super 8 should do as well, is that have every team play off right at the end. 1 versus 2, 3 versus 4, 5 versus 6 and 7 versus 8, and then have like the final things. And I like it how they have it at Taupo. I think Super 8 should do the same. I actually think Super 8 and the CNI should get all-star teams together and then play each other as well. Something that I put a team together every single year for both of them and sort of just have like a hypothetical scenario of what the teams may look like, which I'll do this year as well anyway. That's something that I do all the time, but that's something I'll do this year too. I went down on Saturday and went and watched that final of Feilding and St. John's, and I think the biggest difference for me was St. John's looked like they were ready to play. Just like the energy that they usually give off. And Feilding's like a real, like if you haven't seen Feilding play, and this is like pretty consistent, they always turn up and they look like they're ready to play. They always give that feeling. You can always kind of feel it when they're there on the field. And the leaders lead, the followers on the team follow. Everybody's in sync. Coaching staff is great. Always talking, chatting with the boys. The boys are always passing on the message. In their warm-ups, they're getting it going. Huckers were good on the day. And then when you kicked off the ball, even though Feilding took control of it straight away, once St. John's got the ball, they pretty much scored. You know, once they had real once they had real phases, they pretty much scored right away. And I kind of had this feeling that even after that first try, it was kind of it kind of deflated what Feilding came to do. And for me, it started off with not just the forwards playing a real strong defense, but then once Callum McCabe kicked that ball and gave themselves some distance, and then they had sort of like the recovery side of it, and then they played a few phases like that. There, to me, on that first exchange, going back out of their half for St. John's, right into Feilding's half, is kind of where I saw like, oh, this is too early in the game for Feilding to have someone score on them. And then it pretty much happened again straight away, where St. John's scored again. I think it was the one where there was a breakaway on the outside. I think Tino, I think it was the one that scored. And then, it was Caden, I think. Markia was the one that scored. But it was one of those kind of exchanges where it was just like, oh, that's two really fast. Then it became three really fast. And then it almost felt like it was lost from there. And every time like there was a try by St. John's, Feilding took control for that small little bit, and then once St. John's fronted up with that defense, it almost like collapsed kind of thing. And so for me, like when I was watching, I was kind of getting the feeling like, oh no, like Feilding's kind of falling off a bit. Now this is the first time I've ever really seen Alani Whakava not have a strong game, and like this was the most quietest I've ever seen him in the game. Dane Johnston, it took ages for him to sort of G himself up, where he was having some real big runs. He had made a few mistakes right in the beginning that is uncharacteristic. He's never liked that at all. Rupini Raviyawa, who's like the number 8, he was trying to make runs by himself, and it's never really like that with Feilding. Like Feilding are real controlled, and so when they had the ball, they weren't making the same. Their phases and their systems that they usually go through weren't the same as what I've seen before. It was hard for Kotahi Crib to sort of get out of the rucks and get it going. Ashton Scott was really stunted for that first, 15 minutes of the game. James Tuituba made some big runs. Penny Javier was also trying to get himself going, but to me it felt like there was too much individual rather than them doing it as a team. Where sometimes when you watch Feilding play, they have some big ass runners like Emori, Billy Noyes. Let me look up his name. Oh yeah, Balinaisa, he's the other prop. Usually him, Dane Johnston, Zach Fuller, like these guys will take their big runs, and then when they spread it wide, it'll be usually Penny or Dan. They'll make these little slide breaks, and then they sort of break through on the outside, on the edges, things like that. Never happened in this game. And so when St. John's got the ball, Joel Cahill was there straight away. He had a massive game at prop for St. John's. I think Curtis McCarthy had a big ass game for them. The loose trio of Cornelio Burgess at 6, Harper Mills at 7, and then Keelan Viliami, who was probably one of the main guys in that forward pack besides Joel Cahill. Those two I thought had the best game of the forwards. And Keelan Viliami was, I think this is actually probably his best game of the season. And the way that he ran, the defense that he ran as well, led from the front, because Harper Mills is always going to be in that dark hidden stuff, and I think he's going to be, if he stays at number 7, I think he'll probably be the best number 7 in the CNI next year, and probably could push for, I think he'll make Chiefs under 18s and all that kind of stuff, but I think he could push. He has that kind of talent and ability to push further on if he keeps going the way that he does, because he's not one of those guys that wants the limelight kind of thing. He'll just do the dark stuff and all the tackles, put himself in all those spots, and then Cornelio Burgess as well as Keelan play off the work that he does as well. So it's really good the way that they do it. But those three, along with Joel and Curtis McCarthy, like that forward pack really dominated Feilding's forward pack, and it's the first time I've seen a Feilding forward pack not work when it came to like their kind of system and scenarios that they try to get through. Logan Steens was probably the other one who's the halfback for St. John's, who I thought had a real massive game in terms of making sure that the ball had a lot of air and wasn't stuck on the ground too much, wasn't caught in any one person's hand. He made sure that the ball was always continuously moving, and Cullen McCabe made the right decisions at the right times in terms of making sure they got kicks down the field, getting themselves outside of their halves, did 22, and then once Leighton Jones and Cullen got the ball in their hands, Cullen just destroyed. Like his ability to get in and out of these contact situations, his footwork is so fast and he moves like so quickly that once he puts his gas on, he just goes, and it's just hard to bring him down. And then that's why I like that Caden was sort of on the end of that as well, so that they linked up a lot and they played off each other a lot, which was so cool in the game. But Carlin really saved them in that back line. Callum and Carlin, I think, had the best game. Carlin, Morsati was I think in the whole, out of both teams, he'll probably be the one that I'll give like the MVP to. He was just so good, created so much opportunities for everybody in the game and in his team, and them coming away with that 42-33, it was just huge. It was huge for that team. And like St. John's has been building so much, and John Walters and his team have over the past few years have built up this program there at St. John's that they've got into the finals a few times, and then finally winning on this time, using a lot of local boys. Had a few guys come from outside, not too many, but they've used a lot of local boys that have sort of turned away from going to Hamilton boys and stayed there at St. John's, and it's paid off. And that, to me, that's why I think that St. John's has succeeded, because the boys that choose to stay have developed themselves and pushed themselves into a position where they still get selected for, rep teams and stuff like that, which was kind of not the case before. It was just all Hamilton boys, and then they'll pick a few from here and there. But now it's really, really balanced out. And St. John's is one of the go-to schools to go to for rugby here in Hamilton. It's not just Hamilton boys anymore, which is cool to see. And so all these boys that are coming out of there have really showed how good this rugby program is, and how much has benefited the boys in this area, and they've paid it off with the title. John Walton and his team have just a massive achievement. And even with Justin Locke and Feilding, Feilding's just been so dominant from the start. Remember, there was like a Feilding St. Paul's battle, and then it was a Feilding sort of St. John's battle later on. Because remember, St. Paul's was in the finals for so many years, and they were just so dominant. And Feilding was the only ones that was really, really pushing them. Feilding, Wesley sometimes, things like that. But then now that we've got St. John's, and this is why I rank CNI so high, is because teams like St. John's, like Feilding, like St. Peter's, actually every single team in the CNI competition this year were really, really highly competitive, even though there was influxes of teams playing at a higher standard, then they'll drop, things like that. But every team almost made a case for why they should be higher than what they were, kind of thing, if you understand what I mean. There were teams that were losing to higher teams that were losing to lower teams beating, playing up above what they were expected to do, and it's only just paid off with us. Really, really happy and proud of the finals and how it went all together. Congratulations to the boys from Johnny's boys, and both teams are pretty much going to be back next year, stacked with a lot of kids that will be back, and it's probably going to be that again. Might see those two teams back in the finals again next year. And Lindisfarne is probably going to have something to say about that, because they're going to be stacked as well. The other team I actually went and saw on that same day was Rathkeale and Francis Douglas. And Francis Douglas is one of those teams that they play massively above their talent level. And they always have these out of nowhere kind of star players, like Jeremy Sinclair, who's the first five, who I've been watching him since he was year 11. Is kind of the only guy on this team that I feel like can run with everybody else. But when you put all these guys on a team together, there's something about the school that they just play above what they're supposed to. And when I was watching them yesterday, and I was really keen to see what Jeremy Sinclair did at first five, and how he ran the team from first five. I really wanted to see what kind of decisions he made, whether it was all just, defensive kind of plays, making sure that they weren't getting scored on by too much, all that kind of stuff. But I was actually really impressed with the way that he ran the back line, because I really like the look of the midfield that they got and how they ran. Like Mark Johnson and Kingston MacArthur, who is a 12 and 13, who are good size midfield. They ran well, defense was solid, and they were strong tacklers. But I think they were kind of underrated, and just watching them Like, I've seen 6 games of theirs this year, and the way that these two played, the way that Mark Johnson and Kingston MacArthur played on Saturday was way different to what I've seen them play before. And maybe this is a team, and I was kind of like thinking about this when I was driving home and got back home, and I was like thinking about stuff. I was like, maybe that this team was sparking too late in the season. Because even Luteru Isaiah, who's the number 8, who's year 11, I only found out he was year 11 not long ago. Big, massive runner. A lot of offensive game. Him, John O'Lang at 7, and Siosi Uhila at 6. I thought we're a lot more better than what I've seen them on. They looked different and played differently to what I've seen them on film. And I kind of thought, well, I think this is kind of a team that is blooming too late. They just didn't have enough time. Maybe preseason wasn't as great. They had some really bad losses throughout the year. And even on the bad losses, I was looking at the team. I thought, far out, like, is this team even worth watching? Like, sometimes I feel like that with some teams that, especially Francis Douglas, who's year in, year out, kind of like a team that's like always going to punch above their weight. This year felt different until, later on in this year, I was thinking maybe that this is what it is that these guys are just, they figured it out too late, and now the season's ending. If they had figured this out 4 games into the season instead of last 3 games of the season or 2 games of the season, maybe we're looking at a Francis Douglas who could be a top 4 team in the CNI, which what I saw on Saturday was kind of like what that looked like. They looked like that kind of team. Hawaiki Manutai was probably another guy that I thought was like he had a massive game at hooker for Francis Douglas too. And so, I mean, I'm not too sure how many, because along with Francis Douglas being this kind of side, they're also pretty terrible at their, presence online. Can't find any teams list. You can't find any footage. You can't find, so many things on this team. You can't even find scores on their sports pages sometimes. And so, for me, hunting to try and find out about this team was so hard to do, and trying to promote them as a team is pretty impossible, especially when they don't even help out as a school leaders as well. And that was kind of like the worst thing about this, is that I wish that I could promote them more, because the team that I saw on Saturday, I think was a legitimate team. They just figured it out too late. And then when you go up against a team like Rathkeale, who I kind of think started really, really strong in the year and started to slip off a bit, this might have been the right moment for them to strike if they had sort of got it together. Because to me, John Faluna is probably is obviously like top 3, top 4 lock in the country. He's still going to be under 18 next year because he's a young year 13. But not just him. Hamish Huggins at prop is another guy that I was highly impressed with what he can do. He was a lot different from what I saw him in St. Paul's to what he is now, and his ball distributing as well as his decision making and also his playmaking, which was really good. Suspect early on, but really good in this game that I saw. But his physical game was really good, and I really liked the way that Hamish played on Saturday. Edward Witherston is another one who's the other lock, who also looks like he's like 6'7", 6'8". He'll be back next year because he's only year 12, but he will be another guy that I think that St. John's could have, Rathkeale could have 2 New Zealand secondary school players in a row, which is something that I didn't even know the last time they had a New Zealand secondary school player. or even a Hurricanes player that's been a while too. Like Leon a few years ago was probably close to it. Will last year was really close. They had a few guys who were really close, but I think John and maybe Edward next year will probably be really strong in that. Brandon Matthews is probably another one at open side who's on his way there. He already played like first 15 as a year 10 last year, and him at number 7 is just, he's just so good at number 7. He's just a really, really good open side, and he's only year 11, so he's got the next 2 years to figure out what kind of player he wants to be, what kind of open side he wants to develop into, where his strongest points are going to be, all that kind of stuff. But I also thought that along with him, Rupeni Karoy is probably another guy that I thought, seeing him, because I've seen most of Rathkeale's games this year, seeing him on film to seeing him live was a lot different, and I thought he was a lot more impressive live, and the way that he hit the line and just getting that lead drive going, wasn't a lazy player, always got involved, like things like that. So he was like another guy I was like really impressed with too. The way that I thought they let in some tries that they really shouldn't have, and that was sort of just to the brilliance of the kicking game of Jerem Sinclair, and him just reading the game just because he's that good. But Rathkeale should maybe have stopped a few other tries, but having guys like that in your forward pack and just be dominantly strong and forward, you being forceful up front, is kind of what got Rathkeale the game in the end. Ratima at first 5, even though he's year 11, is still learning. Really confident for a young guy, but Xavier Cook and Spencer Telford, to me, and that midfield was probably their strongest points, because after the ball leaves Tummer's hand, getting it to Xavier and Spencer, those two alone, just doing what they do, is just a massive advantage for your backline to have, and it takes a lot of pressure off Tummer being year 11, and then giving it to both Xavier Cook and Spencer Telford, who are both year 13s, and Xavier's a young year 13 too, so like if he wanted to come back, he could probably come back. But it was just good to see the way that they ran it, and just being active with the ball, keeping things moving. Decision making was great too, and I thought that was like a real strong point for Rathkeale, and just being so strong in those areas. I thought Rathkeale could have probably finished higher on the list, but I mean, that's just kind of how you go. Sometimes I think Rathkeale and Francis Douglas probably just moving the other ways in terms of how the season's ending, and it's not easy to keep a consistent winning streak going, or keeping form going for a team of 22 players, and then trying to keep everybody locked in and excited and focused on what you want to do. Like it's just not easy thing to do. So Rathkeale has had some strong teams. This is probably the strongest team I've seen Rathkeale since I've started high school top 200. This is probably the best team that they've had since then, and they've just got some really solid players doing it, so it's kind of not a surprise at how good they've been throughout this year. Hopefully I get footage of the other teams. I had a quick watch of the Lindisfarne St. Paul's, which Lindisfarne is just such a fast team, such a fast pace, up tempo team, great decision makers on that team. And so later on today, when I have a lot more time to study it more and go through it properly, it will be it would be a good homework assignment for myself. Watching Stream in Wellington yesterday was solid. It was a solid performance by Silverstream. Even with the scoring, Wellington started off that scoring, but it was. I hoped that Wellington would have, even though Wellington won that first game and their first meet up early in the season, I always kind of saw Silverstream as the team that was always building and building and building. And, they have just like so many players, so many star players on their team that I think it was kind of hard for, Wellington to sort of keep up with all the guys that they have, because like when you look at like the forward pack, of Silverstream, I think sometimes it's a bit daunting at how big they are, how quick they get up the field, how physical they can be, and then when you're led by someone like Drew, who just goes 100% all the time at open side, it does become a little, it can get a bit too much. Like even with like Elijah, Elijah at number 8 is one of those guys as well that once you see him running, once you see him hit that ball up, you kind of make a mental note of like, okay, we can't fall off this guy, we can't give him more space, we can't, all those kind of things. You have all those sort of you have all those kind of questions on your mind and be like, okay, that we can't let him do that too much. Jericho Wharahinga's like another one, him and Heath, as well as Noah, like guys like that on the team, especially in that front row. I think sometimes can be too much. Because even when you have like Preston and Sam and at locks, two really tall big guys. Then again you have like Drew and that, Kingston Hill, Elijah, like that, and that's just your forward pack. And like sometimes you can look at a forward pack and go, well, they got a small front row, they got pretty big locks, they got a really good decent, like there's always going to be somewhere lacking in every high school team. They don't really look like, but when you look at Silverstream, they all look like they've got positions locked in to where they kind of look like a professional team. The size wise of it, they all look like they can be professional players, and that can be daunting. And then you go into the back line, and obviously you got Thompson, Tukupua, who to me was probably the MVP of the game. Just the way that he controlled the whole game, from his kicking game, his run game, passing ability was always just there. Like the way he got everybody involved. I just thought that they were just a bit too strong for Wellington, and Wellington struggled, and the struggle increased as the game went on. Like it didn't look like it was going to get any better. It didn't look like it was going to be, they never caught a break in anything that happened on the field. And so like I always kind of felt sorry for Wellington and how they were trying to even get their systems going. It just wasn't working. It just didn't have the same effect. It just didn't have the same effect that it did in those other games that Wellington were playing. And so even though Wellington had a good year this year, think it became pretty clear that it wasn't going to be their year. And once the game started and once everything got going, rain was terrible everywhere in the country, and that didn't help. But it was just way too much for Wellington to handle. Harry Law, charisma, Archie, those guys did as much as they could. Shea played a really good game too. Acadius played a really good game, got injured, got hurt. Hope these fellas are alright, look like a bit of a head knock too. But in saying that, Wellington's on their way. What the men that have set up there looks like it's something that they can actually maintain and build on with the players that they have, and so I'm really looking forward to what Wellington College can do next year. Silverstream's going to be fine because Silverstream has built it at every single level. To me, Silverstream is up there as probably top 5, all-round rugby program from under 14s all the way up to under 15, to under first 15. They're probably one of the best there is in the country for that. Every level is winning. For Wellington, on the other hand, they've had some down years and they're really just starting to make some real good progress, and you can see it now for what they've been doing, and how good it is. It's going to be cool to see what their progression is going to be like next year. I haven't yet watched the Nelson Christchurch boys game yet. I know that they had like a live stream going, so I'm going to go back and watch that. Hopefully I can get sent the Southland Kings High School game, because I'd be really keen to watch that one. Even the Auckland games, like if someone's got a link to those Auckland games, send me on through. But I mean, Kelston beat Auckland Grammar. St. Kitts beat Sacred Heart. I think my predictions at the beginning of the year was going to be Kelston St. Kitts in the finals anyway. And I had Grammar there in the quarters, but I think I chose Kings to also be there. But I think Kelston St. Kitts final is going to be next week with their wins. And I was at the last game that they had where I thought Kelston boys should have won. A couple of kicks, try that was allowed that, I don't know, there's footage on my thing. You can go back and watch it on my Instagram and tell me whether he got over the ball and should have been a penalty, or if you caught it right. But I mean, I thought Kelston boys should have won. All I know is that it's probably going to be a really tight game as well for St. Kitts. St. Kitts and Kelston. I don't know who I would pick out of those two teams. Obviously, I've got St. Kitts ranked higher, but this is kind of like the period where rankings don't really matter. And honestly, like, rankings only matter because of what they've just played. That's how you get rankings. I don't do rankings for predictions. I do rankings based on what you've already played. You still have to play the game. Just because you're ranked first, it doesn't mean that you should win. It just means that what you've done to this point makes me feel like you're the number one team. No, I'm saying you're number one pick now because you're going to be number one next week. If you lose, you sort of drop down. It's kind of the way that rankings work. It doesn't rank as not a prediction. It's just based off what you've just done. And even Tauranga boys found that out too against Rotorua boys. It's just like Tauranga boys. I was at their last game against Rotorua boys down in Tauranga a month ago, 2 months ago. Rainy, wet day, but Tauranga slaughtered them. And Tauranga probably thought that it was going to happen the same way. I don't know, because I haven't seen the game. Another one that I wish that someone would send me so I can have a watch. But I was told that it was a pretty solid performance by Rotorua boys, where they had 2 or 3 tries disallowed, and Tauranga was given a penalty try. Some people were saying that, Rotorua probably should have won by at least 2 tries. And sometimes you get like this, going to Tauranga and Hamilton boys for that final of the Super 8. It's not just the fact that Tauranga won, it's how they won and what circumstance they did it in and by how much they won by. And I agree with everybody else where, and this is the great thing about the Super 8, is that the Super 8's all on YouTube. Now, if you go back and watch the Super 8 and watch Tauranga games, just Tauranga games, you would watch them and go, yeah, this is definitely the best team in the Super 8. And if you were to watch them against other teams, you'd go, yeah, that's definitely one of the best teams in the country. But you still have to get on the field and play the game. Doesn't mean that you just go through just because everyone sees your games and say, hey, yeah, this is why. But the reason why I say that is like, what we have is that we have the opportunities to see who the best teams and players are because of what Whakaara Māori have done and Māori TV, where they've been able to give it to, they've got sponsorships, really massive sponsorships that have made it possible that we all get to see this talent. The best thing about this is that all those boys in the Super 8 who have all been seen are all have better chances of picking up professional contracts from all over the country and all over the world based on the fact that they're being able to be seen on YouTube. And YouTube is obviously a free platform, and Whakaara Māori made it possible for them to be seen all over the world by putting it on YouTube. That's also the benefit that what Huddy Sports has done too, is that they've also made it so that they're also on YouTube. They've made it free to everybody else that can watch from not all over New Zealand but around the world. The benefit of that is, and I've had this sort of discussion with other people before, and I've had a lot of discussion with a lot of parents asking with their kids that are playing for Auckland 1A and 1B schools and saying, should I move my kid out of high school because no one's seen them? I go, well, if I was you, yes, I would. People may say that, well, if you're good enough, you're going to get seen. Okay, but who are you talking about though? Who are you talking about? Are you talking about just the best players? Are you just talking about Jarrell? Or are you just talking about Cohen? Or are you just talking about Finn? Are you just talking about Rios? Are you just talking about, like Jacob Carter, like those kind of guys? Are you just talking about those players? Like Noah Gregory, are you talking about him? Because those guys are obviously going to be seen. But what about everybody else? Saying if you're good enough, you're going to get seen. It's like, but by who? Because being selected and being given a contract is subjective by whoever's seen you. But if you've only got limited eyes seeing you, who are you saying is who are you saying to is good enough that now you've been seen by just those people in Auckland? Now, this is the argument that I have all the time with people. Is just like, don't trust that line of if you're good enough, you're going to get seen, because that only depends on who's actually seeing you. Now, in my honest opinion, if your game is on YouTube and if your game is free and your game is tagged into platforms and platforms like mine, put into your school platforms, and people around the world can watch it, then the right people that see that you're a person that fits their system is then going to offer you that. If your physical presence and your physical attributes are not wanted by something here in New Zealand, then how else are you supposed to get a contract? How are you supposed to be seen? How else are you supposed to get exposed if that's just not what New Zealand is choosing? We've already found out that New Zealand doesn't like these big massive locks, big massive blindsides. We don't like that kind of stuff, because you could just see from sheer size of Argentina, South Africa, we're not bigger than them physically. It's not that saying that we don't have guys that are bigger than them, we just don't select that. It's like we go for more athleticism rather than big physicality guys. In France and that, they love the big physical guys. Now, if you're not chosen here in New Zealand as a lock or blindside or flanker because they go, oh no, you're a bit too short, you're not big enough, oh you're too big. So it's like, well, France they're going to have you. Japan, they're going to have you. Now, if you're going to take that quote of like, if you're good enough, you're going to be seen. What if you don't fit that? They're not going to look at you anyway. If you don't fit those parameters that they have for each position, they're not going to look at you anyway. But if you have them exposed on YouTube, and if you have them exposed on different platforms that you can go on so that people around the world can watch you, then the right eyes are going to see you. And I'm always into like, if league sees you, go to league. If they want you, go to league. Japan wants you, they want to give you a scholarship to go to university and to teach English and to blah blah blah, whatever. They give you a contract. Go to Japan, go to France, go to England. Go to where they want you. But we got to have more eyes seen. This is why I don't like the fact that I've always had a problem with the Highlanders region. And I've had a problem with them because they don't promote any of their players or any of their teams or any of their rep teams around the country. Even their rep games, they kind of keep it to themselves. Like when they play their Highlanders games, they don't do a live stream of that. They just keep it to themselves. Sometimes they won't even name they never used to actually name their Highlanders team on the under 18 team on the Highlanders page or anything like that. I had to go and ask people for it. And even school games, they don't promote school games either. They don't have anyone to live stream it. They don't expect schools to live stream it or anything like that. But the reason why I bring this up and the reason why I say this, like, they don't show anybody what they've got. So the boys within that region, if they're not picked up by Southland or Otago, then you're pretty much not getting picked up, because nobody in Manawatu knows you, nobody in the Hawke's Bay knows you, no one in Wellington and Waikato and Auckland, Northland, they don't know who you are. They've never seen you play. So how are they supposed to find other players that they are interested in? And they go, oh, well, if you guys don't want him, we'll take him because he's a really good player. Sometimes they just don't get that, and then boys lose out on opportunities. For me, that's the reason why you're supposed to have live stream games. That's the reason why I feel like every region should live stream games. It's got nothing to do with the fact like, oh, you're going to put a lot of pressure, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, how about exposing the talent to the rest of the world and give them an opportunity to be seen? Don't just give them the line of, oh, yeah, well, if you're good enough, bro, you're going to get picked. And it's like, nah, what kind of BS stuff is that to say? What kind of BS? Who even came up with that stupid line? Stop believing that. It's such a stupid line to say to kids. How about you sit at home and don't apply for jobs and then see who comes and sees you? See who picks you up or if you're good enough to do the job, they'll come and find you. No, because you're supposed to put yourself out there. How about you help put the kids out there as well? One thing that I kind of don't like is that Central Southland College have good players, Menzies have good players, Waitaki have good players, Wakatipu has good players, Taieri has good players, St. Kevin's has good players. The schools even outside of the fact that we just watch King's High School, Otago, and John McGlashan. There's guys at smaller schools like South Otago High School and Dunstan that have really good players. But you only have so few spots down there in Nelson and Otago and in Invercargill. But if someone else from outside of the province sees them and they want them, do you think that kid will stay there, just go, I want to play for the Stags? It's like, no, if the Stags don't pick him up and someone else wants to grab him, it's like, yeah, Hawke's Bay wants you. It's like, yeah, I'll go up there then. Of course that kid's going to make that decision. But you still have to be seen. You still have to show everybody else what you guys have got. Not for you as like a province, or not for you as a franchise. To me, that's just like, man, you're cutting off these guys' opportunities just because you're like, oh, I don't want them to come grab our players. It's like, why? Half those guys in the Highlanders team aren't even from Dunedin or even Invercargill. All your Islander boys are not from down there. Cut it out. I've been doing this for 10 years. I know who all those boys are. They're not from there. And then I've looked inside your guys, and I'm just talking about the Highlanders and the Otago comp. I've looked at those rosters there. You think that all those Samoans and Tongans are all from there? Cut it out, bro. Come on. So don't give this like, oh, I don't want to, give away any of our players or our talent. It's like, bro, you're drawing them in anyway. And that's great. That's what you should be doing. But that means you should also let a lot of players go out too. If you don't want them down there, let them go. Don't let them just like sit there, get stuck, and then think. And sometimes these kids think that they're not good enough. They go, oh, I thought I was really good, but then no one's picked me up. It was like, no, because nobody else has seen you. And I open this up to everybody. Dunstan, South Otago, Menzies, all you guys from all these areas, Wakatipu and that. If you guys have highlights of yourself and you make a highlight clip of yourself, send them to me and I'll put them out on my platform. I know you guys may not know this, but on my platform, I have so many agents, scouts, recruiters that are all on my page, and all they do is just watch clips from people that are on my page. So if you want to be seen and you don't feel like anyone's helping you out, make your clips, send it to me, and I'll put it out on mine. Because I want you to be seen. Don't let somebody else like hold that card for you of like, if you're good enough, you're going to be seen. It's like, well, not to your eyes. I'll send it to somebody else's eyes. It's like, I'll send it to Herschel's platform because he's got different eyes that are watching of different people who may think I'm better. The world is just bigger now, like, because we've got the internet. Why leave it to just who's in your area? I don't want to limit boys and with the platform that I have, keep boys in the same position that they've been at. This is why, and people always have a go at me for it's like, well, you only have like this many. I was like, hey, I ranked 200 boys, 200 players in my top 200, just that, 200 boys. Then another 100 boys in my top 100 for year 12s. Then another top 60 for my year 11s. I'm not just promoting 200 boys. 360 is not what I'm promoting, because different names and boys come in and out of them. Different articles, I name different boys in my articles and in my write-ups. So I'm not just promoting a top 200 boys, not at all. I'm trying to promote as much kids as I can, name as much kids as I can, so that if they're read about, then at least they're looked at, read about, and go, oh, okay, I'll see what this kid is like. That's exactly what the platform is for. I just get annoyed at people that are in these places so that they can expose a lot of talent to everywhere else, don't use the technology that we have to do this. Streaming is not the easiest thing, and I'm not saying that at all, because it's not. But I'm so grateful to Whakaara Māori for doing what they do, Huddy Sports for doing what they do, or even the Pit TV, which is that's the game that I watch on the Southland one on Pit TV, for what they do as well. And I'm so grateful for these platforms that want to try. Even the guy that does, I'm sorry if I'm forgetting your page on YouTube, but they do Christchurch boys games as well, and they put out. I want to do this right. Hold on, let me just look for what the name is, because I watch his stuff all the time, and I've watched so many of his games. Onside Rugby, that's what it's called, Onside Rugby. And the last one that I just watched was the Christchurch and Christ game on there as well. And the Onside Rugby, jump onto that. It's cool because he just has games and he cuts out all the standing around parts and all that, so you don't have all that middle stuff. But then him promoting these games as well, him or her or whoever it is, just the way that they've edited that down has given so much more exposure. So jump on those, because those are the ones that I jump on too, and I watch them all the time. Edwin Patterson is the other one. Edward Patterson is the other one as well, from Timaru Boys High School is another one that I watch too. And the stuff that he puts out of their games, that's how I watch a lot of the stuff. Whangarei Boys has been great this year. Feilding have always been great this year, or always been great. I used to have a link with Samhain combined, but I don't have that one anymore, so I've tried to find out some other ones. Westlake has been good as well. Auckland obviously has been terrible, but I get games sent to me by different few odd players, so I've seen most of those boys that have played in Auckland. I'm always grateful for those that have been able to send me games, but I feel like we can do better. I feel like we've got a lot more to give, and that a lot more, and we can help a lot more too. I just wish that it wasn't in a place like YouTube where it's accessible to everybody. And if we can do that, at least we can create a place where context matters. We can create a place where boys can be noticed a lot more, and boys can be seen at every level. I've loved some of the under 15 stuff that I've seen. Even Onside Rugby does under 15 games sometimes. Silverstream have been great with that. Silverstream also has a page where they're putting out games, even though they're late. I'll still go back and watch them. If they come in late, like 2 weeks late, I'll still go back and watch them. But yeah, there's got to be something else. There's got to be different avenues and places to do it. I don't know what's going to happen. Tauranga Boys. So Rotorua Boys, next week's game is Rotorua Boys versus Pukekohe, which I think I actually might go and watch that game. That might be the game I'll watch. Because I think Eden Park are holding the 1A and the 1B again. I think because there was so much anger about it last year, being in, I think it was at Waitemata when I went last year, it was at Waitemata, and people got so angry, so I think that they're moving it back to Eden Park as a curtain raiser. But the finals between Rosmini and Westlake, that's going to be a big one. I think that might be a curtain raiser. They usually play on a Friday, so I'm not too sure what they're going to do, but that's going to be a big one. Nelson College, because they beat Christchurch Boys and they won their title in the Myers Toyota Premiership. Southland Boys will travel up to Nelson, and they play in Nelson next week. I think because Gisborne Boys beat Napier, another one of those that I kind of shook my head at, but like, man, how did that happen? Even though Gisborne Boys has been playing really good, they put up a massive fight against Tauranga Boys. I didn't think that Napier Boys was going to lose to Gisborne Boys at all. But what they've got, Coach Hay's got up there going on in Gisborne. He's building something that's really strong. He's building something that I think Gisborne boys haven't had for years now, and him using all his own boys that are from there, I think he's done. Coach Hay's he's done something massive there, and I think it's working. I really think it's working, and I hope those boys stick it out and they stay there, because it looks like they're going to be going. They're going to be getting stronger and stronger every single year now. I got to look at the Hurricanes one, because I think Hastings Palmy is also another teams that they have to play. Or am I getting that wrong? Anyways, I'll do my own Hurricane anyway. I'll put those teams out. This has been too long of a podcast. I've gone for an hour. For those that are driving in your car, stuck in traffic in Auckland, maybe move out of Auckland, because that's too long to be stuck in traffic for an hour, even in Wellington. But love you all. Later, ball.